So the much awaited Pro Sports Injury Recovery and Concussion Research Panel with a star-studded cast. I'll make quick introductions. We've got Matt Tverin, and help me if I'm mispronouncing the name, but he's Sweden's top chiropractor and a martial arts Hall of Fame inductee. We've got Dale Comstock, who is a former Delta Force and Green Beret and boxing, bodybuilding, and author of, incredible title for the book that he authored, American Badass. So we like that. Marvin Washington, Super Bowl champion, advocate in recent years, actually for many years, advocating the use of marijuana and CBD products for NFL players and others to utilize for pain management. Also, we've got Will Carr, international basketball player and founder of Genesee Nutrition, and we've got Dr. Chevalier as mentioned as well. So that's our cast, and I'm going to start it off by just kind of asking each of our panelists to weigh in. I got a question or two along the way, but let's start with you, Mats. Obviously, when you talk about being a chiropractor and me being a layperson, obviously, with a layperson's perspective, I really wonder from your perspective what you think the impact has been over the years with CBD and cannabis products in terms of how it impacts what you do as a chiropractor. And was there some sort of aha moment along the way that really helped escalate that use in that practice?
The tough one for me personally is that Sweden has a rule that you are not allowed to sell CBD products in Sweden, but we have to import it from abroad with a 0% THC level in it. I had my aha moment about a year and a half, 2 years ago with the hostess of this show. And we tried out some CBD products personally, and I got rid of my joint pains after practicing. I'm a sort of heavy dude, about 220. So that took me to take that to my wife who has a condition, and that helped her out. So then I tried to get my patients to use it, and it's been very successful in the ongoing pain, and especially for people with conditions like RA and psoriasis and stuff like that, conditions like that. But the majority of people I know that uses it is more or less sports people for the reason that they recover more quickly. And they don't have the same stress on their ligaments and joints in their subjective perspective.
Okay. No, thank you for that, Matt. I appreciate it. Dave, let me circle to you for a second here. I know you've got a session coming up following this, so there will be more from Dale in the next session. But I'm curious, when you talk about cannabis and how it will help optimize performance, and I hear the term optimal performance and peak performance. Can you tell us what the difference is between the two and how cannabis affects that?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. So the difference between optimal performance and peak performance is this. Peak performance implies that you're always working at the top level, right? Performance, and that's impossible. You'll burn out. And so what I teach people is to work at an optimal level. For example, and I'll use, testosterone replacement therapy, right? You'll go to the doctor, say, I want testosterone replacement therapy. He'll do a test, and the test is between 250 and 1,200. The numbers, and you'll say, oh, well, you're 300, so you're in the normal range, right? But you're going, well, I'm at the low normal range, and I'm not really feeling good. And so what you want to tell the doctor is, I want to be at the optimal range. I want to be at a range where I'm performing optimally all the time. Maybe not at the top of the 1,200 where I'm an 18-year-old kid anymore, but somewhere where I'm most effective. So, and that's how I differentiate it. And I also teach on the performance level, not just physical performance, but the psychological performance. It's hard to always work at the optimal peak level. We can't. And, we've got to back down a little bit. So, and I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot of experience with marijuana, cannabis, believe it or not. I'm the one kid that I tried it when I was 16, didn't do anything for me. And I'm like, and I just kind of moved on with my life. I was always an athlete, so to speak. But I am an advocate for it because funny thing is my roommate is a very big advocate of it, and he gives me CBD oils, and I play with it all the time. So the important thing is, it's a natural substance. And I believe if it's going to help your body, then why not use it, right? And first of all, people make arguments about, it's a drug, it's this and that and that. And I'm like, well, how many people are dying from marijuana in car accidents, and all those types of things? So, I understand it's not about health as much as it's about politics and government making money off of people. But I'm a big fan of using nutritional supplements to augment our performance, whether it's cognitive performance or whether it's physical performance. And again, I've had a little experience with the CBD creams on my knees. I've blown out knees with I'm a martial artist as well, and sometimes, especially when you're my age, you blow a knee out, and so I've actually had very good success with it. So I don't, I only have positive things to say about it, and I've yet to see anything that would compel me to argue against it or against its use. So that's kind of my take on it.
All right. Oh, well, thank you for that insight, Dale. Will Carr, how you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. So, pardon me for my ignorance to a degree here, but yeah. But I read where you sampled hemp phytocannabinoids at a golf tournament in 2017. Tell me what they are and what that experience was like for you, and has it been a game changer?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was with me having a background in athletics. I played basketball in college, and then I got the chance to play overseas for a little while. And when I came back to the States, I was doing medical sales, and I got invited to this golf tournament. And at the time, I'd had turf toe, which athletes are all too familiar with. And 2 weeks into ibuprofen, was still hurting. And I was on the golf course, and someone gave me CBD, and 30 minutes later, my toe didn't hurt. And so that's really what sparked me into this. And that was about 3 years ago, almost exactly. And really, I just wanted supplements that in CBD products that I personally would use. And as an athlete, I have so many friends that have used so many opioids, and popping 5 to 10 Advil a day was nothing. We didn't even think about it. And so knowing that I could then take this new knowledge of something that's so natural and that helps so much and be able to put it into actual functional foods and supplement products that I would use, that my friends would use, that my peers would use, that other athletes would use, weekend warriors, whatever. That was really my motivation for it. And then I wanted stuff that tasted good too. So, it's like stuff's got to taste good, or I got a sweet tooth, man.
No, I hear you. No, thank you for that, Will. Marvin Washington.
Hey.
How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man.
All right. We've talked about this subject over the years, and I know, especially in the NFL context, you just really thought the NFL was so far behind when it came to its drug policy and how it dealt with marijuana and cannabis and CBD and products of that nature. Well, in this last labor deal that was just formalized back in the spring, the NFL pretty much scrapped marijuana and cannabis from its drug policy, catching up with the other leagues. Did they finally get it right?
It was a step in the right direction because, like, when we were first talking about this, and not like I've been in this industry a long time, since 2014, it was always if, but I always knew that the ceiling back then would be when that collective bargaining agreement was going to be up in 2020. So they did, scrap it and took the prohibition off of fines and suspending guys for testing positive, but they still need to take the other step and then incorporate it into their medical program, because this is something that's all natural, non-toxic, non-addictive, that can do some of the things that the opiates and benzodiazepines that they give to the players. It will do the same thing. It can lessen the pain, it can take away the pain. So instead of taking a naproxen or Tylenol 3 or whatever just to get through the week, these guys need to be able to medicate with cannabis and have no negative side effects on their body, come to practice the next day, and they're not hungover and they're not under the influence of an opiate. And then the biggest thing is there's 20,000 former players, NFL players, and we're 4 times as more likely to abuse opiates than general society. So that kind of tells you what's happening in our community. But I believe opiates can solve 2 things with the NFL. It can solve the safety issue with chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, because the government has that patent, not me. This is not something that the cannabis community made up. The government has that patent, 6630507, that CBD can act as a neuroprotectant and antioxidant for the brain in relation to concussions. So we can go down there and explore that lane. And then also with addiction, because anytime cannabis, whether it's CBD, whether it's THC, whether it's CBDA, or what have you, any of these cannabinoids are introduced into a community, addiction rate goes down 15 to 25%. We're going to get there with the NFL. Their medical board from the NFL and NFLPA, the union, they're looking at it. We've had talks. My thing is like, okay, let's start it out like this. Let them use CBD, and start out with that, with a topical and whatever. But if you're going to go into pain management and whatever and talk about THC, because I'm a proponent of the whole plant, well, put it on the TUE, which they do with the players that have attention, ADD and ADHD. They let them use Ritalin and all these other drugs that WADA has said is a performing enhancing drug, but they do it under the auspice of a team doctor and trainer. Let's start that out with THC in the states that and municipalities that it's legal to use in, and let's progress from there, because this thing is going to happen. The NFL has finally caught up with Major League Baseball and NBA and NHL, but it's the biggest sports league in the world, the most profitable sports league in the world. If they get behind this, they can bring up, all the other leagues and society in general. So we still got some work to do, and maybe I'll be gone by the time they get there, but it's going to happen, man. So I am optimistic and very bullish on the whole plant and CBD and cannabis being used for medicinal benefits for the NFL and all athletes.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And you think about how grueling of a sport football is, not to take anything away from any other sport like basketball.
No, we're going to take it away, because here's the thing. Everybody talks about these different sports and what have you, man, and they always say, yeah, contact sports. Well, football's not a contact sport. Football's a collision sport. It's 100%. A violent collision sport, man. So I don't know what contact is. I can watch, the Grizzlies and the Blazers today, and that's contact, or hockey is contact, but football is collision every day, every play.
All right, thank you, Marvin. Dr. Chevalier, how you doing? Unmute, please, doctor.
There you go. Yes, very good, sir. Thank you.
How are things?
Really, really well.
Just to follow up on what Marvin was just talking about in terms of football being a collision sport, we know that the NFL and football in general has had so many issues with concussions, and there's been so much more attention, and the long-term effects have been, revealed more and more as people have learned more. What have you found out from a medical standpoint that's most significant when you talk about CBD and helping with concussions and the symptoms of concussions?
Yeah, it's the connection between concussion, CTE, and suicidal ideation, which now I think has been scientifically proven. There's a study in Canada. And we also have on my research functional MRI. And it shows with TBI, concussion, CTE that it freezes the brain. So your neural connectivity and plasticity go down significantly. And these players, and I also work with veterans, they experience a lot of similar symptoms. So you have memory loss, headaches, but you have uncontrollable emotional release. You have major depression disorder, and it leads to suicidal ideation. And that's a real issue that I'm extremely passionate about. My line of work, we have been extremely successful in reversing that in a natural way. And one of the product that I use, which is part of the protocol that I use, is CBD nano water, and it's been extremely successful for that end. So we are launching, Denise was talking about it earlier, we are launching a research and we are raising funds right now so we can get enough basically participants in the research using functional MRI. We're going to be working together with Marvin. We're also going to be working with Dr. Golda and also Dr. Judy, and we're going to get this research up and going, and we're going to publish it, and that will be the baseline for what we want to do in the future and take it to the next level.
Doctor, can you give us some sort of perspective on the timeline? If you think about what you know now about treating concussions and neurological situations versus 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Well, one of the major landmark was the movie with Will Smith, the movie Concussion, that really raised awareness in the public. And when you have awareness in the just general population, things can be done much faster. So our goal is, now we know we have a problem, concussion. We know that concussion leads to chronic pain, physical tremors, essential tremors, major depression disorder, drug addiction, insomnia, major depression disorder, so et cetera, et cetera. We all know that. Now, what we don't know, there is a solution, and we do have a solution for this. So the goal is to do the research and do a documentary, and ultimately do a movie to raise awareness among the general public that there is a solution without drugs, without side effects, and it's 100% safe. So one of the things, how it started is that I work at the Executive Office of the President of the United States for 19 years now as a contractor for the White House Athletic Center. So I deal with Secret Service. Those guys are like real athletes, they train, and they came to me with head injury. And so since I also work on mental health, I saw the similar patterns. And I started doing more research, and I realized that any form of head collision, head injury leads to major depression disorder, suicidal ideation. I was very interested to know what is the link between those two. So that's how it started. And so what we use medical electrical acupuncture without needle. We use frequency medicine, and we use CBD nano water. And we also use a unique form of cognitive behavioral therapy, plus DNA nutrition and all of that.
It's 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're going to wrap up here in a couple minutes, but I just want to circle back to a couple people here. Mats, when you think about your practice, what is the most encouraging sign in your mind in terms of how CBD and products of that nature can help?
Unmute. Matt unmute himself.
Sorry for that. I think in the long-term patients that have long-term either conditions or have had a long-term chronic pains, that will be extremely helpful to get them over the top of it, to get down to a level where they can start sleeping properly and start taking care of the rest of their body. Because if you're in chronic pain, you most likely don't sleep as you should, and then that has side effects on insulin levels and recovery and all that. So just getting that top notch of the pain part, it's going to be extremely helpful for the overall health. And then getting them into sports or recovery physiotherapy, and with that including nutrition and CBD, that will be extremely good. So we can get them as fast as we can out of pain to get them more productive in society. And that's what I've seen in those patients that I have been treating with the CBD products so far. More or less 100% of them are going in the right direction.
Okay. Well, thank you. Will, I want to ask you a follow-up question too. When you think about the psychological impact of an athlete in dealing with pain, and what the relief that you get when you're not feeling as much pain, can you describe what that's like? Excuse me. Can you describe what that's like?
Well, it's the difference between feeling like I'm optimally able to go out and tackle the day and kick today's ass, or feeling like I can't. It's that simple. And being able to say, because and I think that one of the really big things that I like to talk about when it comes to CBD and cannabis that I think really distinguishes between a lot of the other conversation that happens is like a lot of the CBD cannabis talk gets directed towards the chronic pain, chronic disease, like when you have a lot of pain or some, big things going on, or even cancer and all kinds of stuff, things get talked about, that's what I'm saying. And so I think that the bigger conversation, I'm so glad that cannabis can help for so many things and people that are in tough situations, but I'm a 29-year-old, healthy, vibrant, active young man. And, I think that one of the bigger conversations that needs to be had around cannabis and CBD is making healthy people healthier. So, we're talking about these athletes that are at the peak of performance. They're the best athletes in the world. They got the best bodies. They just have pain because we're hard on them. And obviously football's the worst because like Marvin was saying, it's collision. I wish basketball was a contact sport. I'd probably still be playing, but I fouled out. They made me, I couldn't play anymore. But it was like, and so for me, I'm this healthy young man. And so I like to think of it a lot as even just like, you take CBD and cannabis every day because we're making healthy people healthier. It's good for everybody, regardless of whether or not I have, a chronic condition or I'm in chronic pain. It's good for you, and so I think that even just knowing that from, your original question was the psychological standpoint. And I think that as an athlete, or even now as like a business owner, I approach it with that same sort of competitive, thought mentality. And I want my mind and my body to be at optimal performance so that I can compete on the highest level. And knowing that I'm putting the right stuff in my body in order to make sure that I can be the best I can be, that gives me that mental edge to know that I'm at the top of my game. I'm at my best. No one can knock me off my pedestal. No matter what happens, I'm going to get back up. I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to get better every day. And so I think that's what a lot of it is. It's just that knowing that you're doing everything that you possibly can to take care of yourself. Okay.
No, thanks a lot for that, Will. Dale, I know you're up next with the next segment, but before we move to that, what you have any closing thoughts here?
Man, I got a lot of thoughts. Actually, I share a lot of them in my segment. But I was a Delta Force operator. I spent 20 years in the United States Army as a Green Beret, as a Delta Force operator, as an infantryman, a paratrooper, and a long-range scout. And I consider myself Besides the fact that I was a professional boxer, I actually consider myself a tactical athlete, as many of us did in the military. And I can tell you that being a Delta Force operator, a Green Beret, physically was harder than being a professional boxer or athlete. I can tell you the wear and tear our bodies go through, the jumping out of airplanes, jumping off of walls, climbing things, falling out of trees. I can go on all day long. And, there's a lot to be said for, CBD oils and things like that, because I have a lot of friends that have TBI. Actually, I suffered a stroke 9 years ago from TBI, from blast overpressure from IEDs and explosives. And, it's had a profound effect on a lot of our veterans. And a lot of my friends have come back with testimonials that the CBD and the components of cannabis have actually alleviated their pains and ameliorated a lot of these issues that a lot of them have experienced before that with these head injuries. So, anyways, I'll elaborate a little bit more on that in my segment. I don't want to steal everybody's thunder right now. So,
steal your own thunder, right? No, appreciate that, Dale. Marvin Washington, I want to get the last word from you. I remember when we talked a couple, 3 years ago, and we said, boy, I think you said maybe 70% of the NFL players smoked weed as, pain management. Can you talk a little bit about why this is so much better than opioids? And maybe you touched on it earlier, but when you talk about the chronic pain and dealing with the chronic pain that comes with, playing that collision sport, what's your sense on where this can go with regard to the non-reliance on opioids?
I think it can get us back to natural medication, which we medicated on for thousands of years, and we just started getting on this opioid train for the last 80. Just talking about Dell and talking about Will, if you're talking about optimum performance, you can get that. It's not all about chronic pain. It's about getting the best out of what you can do each day. So if optimum for an athlete, he's never going to hit 100% every day. But if he can give 100% of late in the season of that 90% that he has, then you're going to have a better athlete. These opiates, they block pain and what have you, and then guys, they block this pain, but then they get to a point where they can't block it. But if you modulate it and manage it throughout the season, you're going to have that guy available for each practice and each game. Because as you know, Jared, the best ability that a football player has or athlete has is availability. He has to be available to practice and to play. And I think something natural, non-toxic, non-addictive can make these guys better athletes. And I know owners see them as a commodity. Well, why not invest in something that's going to give you an ROI for more games, more seasons than what you're getting now? Because these opiates are taking guys out. And if you can have something that can make your game safer, because right now, if little Johnny wants to play football and you're sitting in his living room as a coach and the mom or dad asks the question, is little Johnny going to get a brain disease from playing this game? How are you going to answer that? And that's why you see, the youth participation of football going down, because there's a safety issue in there. So let's take care of that. Let's take care of the head. Let's take care of addiction. Let's take care of the body, because, the NFL needs to be forward thinking. And I told you a long time ago, the top three sports in the 1950s was boxing, horse racing, and baseball. If NFL wants to be number one in 2030 and 2040, they have to take care of the safety issue and the disease that is their industrial disease. And number two, they have to take care of and protect and shield is the 20,000 former players that leave this game, and a quarter of them, or 30% of them, are addicted to these opiates and not able to function in society. We need to get behind this plant. Cannabis is medicine, whether you're taking on THC, whether you're taking on CBD, whatever. And I don't know any NFL player, these guys are getting high, but I don't know anybody that gets high just to get high. Everybody's trying to do something to feel better. And this is what these guys are doing, because you got the stress, you got the injuries, You got the financial obligations and stress that comes from that. Guys want to relax and get away from that, and a lot of guys medicate with cannabis. It's been in the NFL. It's going to be in the NFL. It's in society. It's going to be in society. We need to embrace this, man, and explore it.
Wow. Great point. On that note, we'll wrap up this panel, this very interesting panel with our star-studded cast of panelists. We'd like to thank you and give that program a note that coming up next is Dale Comstock, I'm sorry, American Badass. All right. Thanks a lot.
Great. Hey, Will, I'll be in contact. I'll be in contact with Will.
Thank you. And I don't know if you all can see this, but this is how long Jarrett has been a thought leader. This news headline, if you can read it, was from 2016. And I recall what it did on ESPN when you were commentating on that show. So I really want to thank you, Jarrett, and all of the athletes, Marvin, Matt, Dale, and Will, for participating today. Thank you also, Dr. Chevalier, for explaining what is being done behind the scenes to help the people that are deeply affected by brain injury and what we as a global community are doing about it.